I keep up with literature? I don't read nonfiction anymore.
It totally is a relationship, and I've been a very bad girlfriend, I guess.
I used to wake up and read for like an hour, maybe take a bath during the day and read for an hour. Before I went to bed at night, read for a couple of hours.
And then I got pregnant, and I think since then I've read maybe 10 books in 5 years.
I know.
I'm
kind of against books. I'm sort of sick of books.
Hi, I'm Maggie Mason from MightyGirl.com, and today we are talking about books, which I love. So, all of us had kids and then got to the point where I'm sure, I guess when you're breastfeeding or when you're bottle feeding, there's a lot more time to read. But past that point, you kind of lose your space for that. There's not a lot of extra time, and the extra time that you have usually goes into like bathing. So, have you managed to keep up your reading habit, or has it gone by the wayside? What does reading mean to you? And have you found ways to maintain it?
You know, when I was a kid, I was a huge reader, a voracious reader, to the point where my mother, I remember, and Trinidad would go, Karen, go outside and get some fresh air now. And and so I would usually just take my book and go outside and sit under a tree and read, which is not exactly what she had in mind, but I loved to read.
You know, I used to tell myself that as a writer, in order to be good, in order to be great, I had to read 100 pages for every 1 page I wrote. And then I got pregnant, and I think since then I've read maybe 10 books in 5 years.
How do I keep up with literature? I don't read nonfiction anymore. I don't have I don't know what it is. I don't have time for that relationship, because to me it's almost a relationship. I remember, you know, when you get really into a novel and you're like looking forward to reading it, like I've seen a friend and it's just not happening.
It totally is a relationship, and I've been a very bad girlfriend, I guess. But it does. It takes a sort of a commitment to say that I'm going to read all the time. I'm going to read, and I love. And you know, you get excited. I got to get back to that book if it's a really good book.
I am the type of person who definitely have had books totally alter my path in life. So here are my big game changers. We just talked about this on the feminism Momversation. So this is Backlash by Susan Faludi. She's a journalist who makes a journalistic case for sexism and how it evolves in given situations. Fascinating.
All-time favorite book of all time, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Amazing book. This was the first literature book I ever read that I actually enjoyed reading, right? That I wasn't reading it in English class because it was on the list, but I really got into it. And I have read it countless times over the years. Very relatable, and every time I read it, I find something new in it that's just astounding.
One person, one book, changed my life. He's actually seated behind me in this frame. Henry Miller. I read Henry Miller's Tropic of Cancer for the first time when I was 18. It was Miller that inspired me to write with honesty, to live with honesty, to be true to myself.
Raymond Carver short stories, what we talk about when we talk about love. The Gazebo, great one about relationships. Yeah, they're kind of good and bad at the same time. George Orwell, this is How Much Catalonia, went to Spain partly because of that. And George Orwell and Graham Greene are my all-time most favorite writers.
The Four Agreements. I read this whenever I need to reboot, like I'm just feeling yucky in my life or wrong in my skin. It's really helpful if you're going into conflict situations. It's a good grounder. This, Miss Manner's Guide to Excruciatingly Correct Behavior. It's a good playbook for like society's rules.
This book was given to me, actually a copy of it was given to me when I first became a US citizen. And it was given to me by an appellate court judge. It's called Made in America, and it's by the writer Bill Bryson. It's the first time I ever read a book and understood that scholarly writing could be very funny and very relatable. And Bill Bryson, I've read many of his books, and he is probably my favorite writer.
Karen, Bill Bryson is one of those people who I read one book, I think it was A Walk in the Woods, where he hikes the Appalachian Trail, and then I just read everything after that, just devoured his stuff. He's an amazing writer and so funny and smart at the same time. It's so hard to be funny and smart.
Pretty much everything Miller's ever written I've read. The power of the written word to me was so clear from reading his books. In fact, the first passage that I read of this book, this is actually on page 2, was the passage that changed my life. And it goes like this. To sing, you must first open your mouth. You must have a pair of lungs and a little knowledge of music. It is not necessary to have an accordion or a guitar. The essential thing is to want to sing. This is then a song. I am singing.
Arguably the book that changed my life the most, plug, is my book, No One Cares What You Had for Lunch, 100 Ideas for Your Blog. I wrote this when I was in my 3rd trimester. The act of writing it helped me sort of let go of the idea that I have to do everything perfectly, or that it has to be the right time to have a kid, or the right time to do something big for yourself. So that, of course, was a game changer. How about you? What are your favorites? What do you wish everyone would read? What do you wish you had more time to read? And how do you keep your love of literature alive in the face of all of that screaming?
The conversation is happening now at Momversation.com.